We are approaching September now in a couple of days, so I figured it was time to come back from the dead and release my fantasy quarterback tiers and rankings, and also just go through my basic strategy. Will Starlipper, Fantasy Fortune, it's been a while, but let's just hop straight into it. Starting off with tier number one. I think it's pretty fairly easy. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are most people's QB1 and 2. I personally think Drake Maye belongs on this tier. Don't have to speak too much on Josh Allen. The guy has been a top 1 or 2 quarterback for like 6 years straight now, and he's always an extremely safe option. Lamar, when healthy, safe option. Sometimes he's not healthy, but you can't predict injuries. Drake Maye, though, I think he belongs at QB2, and a lot of people think, oh, easy schedule, that will come down. And I agree with that. I thought the Patriots weren't necessarily a Super Bowl team, even though they got there. But I believe that Drake Maye, not only with his rushing upside, he gets A.J. Brown, which is a huge upgrade in the offense. Sure, they have a harder schedule, but when you break down Drake Maye's fantasy points by quarter, the guy was barely giving you anything in the fourth quarter, like the entirety of last season because of that bad schedule. So the bad schedule is helpful for 3 quarters, and then he's only playing 3 of 4 quarters. Not entirely, but they were up against these bad teams so often that he didn't even need to do anything for the fourth quarter. So you're going to get probably 4 quarters of Drake Maye this year, and I would take him over Lamar. I think he's just safer to stay healthy, be a part of a great offense, and I'm a big Drake Maye guy. Now we'll go through my strategy here coming up, but here's tier number 2. I'm a little iffy on this tier because I honestly like a lot of the values in the third tier better, but I had to separate them. Jayden Daniels and Jalen Hurts, obviously, with the rushing upside that they have, if you do get a full 17 games out of them, they should be top 5 quarterbacks. I'm a little questionable on Jayden Daniels. I think a lot can go wrong. I don't trust the team, the offense. Obviously, he has his injury history, specifically last season, a little bit throughout college. But if you get a full 17 games out of him, or at least 15, 16, 17, you're going to get a top 5 quarterback, most likely. Jalen Hurts, I like. I think he's a pretty safe pick. I'm just not a guy that's willing to pay up for quarterbacks, and I'll get to that when we get to tier number 3. But Jalen Hurts, I think, really suffered last season from Kevin Patullo. And honestly, that's the story of this Eagles offense the last few years, is how is the offensive coordinator? Is it Kellen Moore or is it Kevin Patullo? Is it Shane Steichen? They have good OCs. Then Jalen Hurts is a top 3 quarterback. They don't have a good OC. Last year wasn't his best year, but he was still pretty efficient for a fantasy quarterback. Obviously, he loses A.J. Brown. The tush push is still there. I'll talk a little bit more about these guys right now. And tier 3, this is what I'm targeting for the quarterback position. I don't blame you if you want to pay up for Josh Allen, Drake Maye, or Lamar Jackson. That's just not typically my strategy. And I think that this quarterback year specifically goes all the way almost to like QB 17, where I feel like I'm cool with those guys as my starting quarterback. Now, it depends on league scoring, obviously, but tier number 3, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, and Brock Purdy. These are in order for me, left to right. However, they can fluctuate a little bit on the tier. If you want to make a couple of swaps, I may not, care too much. Trevor Lawrence, though, obviously, he's my QB6. The guy was QB4 last season. His involvement, obviously, I'm a big Liam Cohen guy. He's got a loaded set of wide receivers. And I think losing Travis Etienne could be helpful, specifically because Trevor Lawrence was so involved in red zone rushing offense. Like, he was getting goal line carries and stuff like that. And, I fully expect that to be there this season without Travis Etienne there, or Travis Etienne, I guess, nowadays. Justin Herbert, he was second in quarterback rushing last year, and I know that they just lost their starting center, but having Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt back improves this offensive line from bottom 5 to at least middle of the pack. They were projected top 10 before Tyler, I don't even know how to say his last name, got injured. But I think the key here is Mike McDaniel coming in. I have so much faith in this offense. Getting Hampton back, Ladd, QJ, Oronde Gadsden and a way better offensive line, I really do have high hopes. Joe Burrow, this is going to seem low to some people. And if you want to have him up at the top of this tier, I'm okay with it. I just don't want to pay up for him. And obviously that he goes as the QB4, QB3 to 5, depending on the site. But, his average ADP is QB4. To me, that gives me Baker Mayfield vibes from last year, CJ Stroud vibes from the year before, where these guys are going as top 5 quarterbacks because they just had career years, even though Joe Burrow didn't. They're expected to like be top 3 in passing yards and passing touchdowns without rushing upside. Now, can Joe Burrow lead the NFL in passing yards and touchdowns? Absolutely. But if he doesn't, he's not going to come close to this ADP, whether that's an injury or maybe the defense is better and he doesn't have to do as much. They don't have to put up 40 points a game. I don't really have the interest in paying up for Joe Burrow, and I'll talk about that in my fades coming up in the next couple of videos. Dak Prescott, huge Dak Prescott guy. He finished as a top 5 quarterback last year, and he was actually expected to finish even higher than he did. And he has the best set of wide receivers in the NFL. Like every part of this offense, they're the second ranked offense in points per game last season and projected this season. This is a guy that I don't think he needs the rushing upside to be a top 5, top 6, top 7 quarterback, but you can get him as QB 11. And so that's someone I prefer much more than Joe Burrow because he's just as capable of putting up those type of stats, but you can get him way cheaper. Caleb Williams, I have him a little lower than some people. I absolutely see the ceiling here where he finished as a top 5 quarterback last season, I think, at least top 6. And, you could get that year 3 crazy breakout. I like the offense. So he's got some rushing upside. I just think, the reason I have, Dak, Herbert, and Lawrence ranked above him is because they go after Caleb Williams, and I just much prefer their values. And I have them on the same tier. If all these guys were, there in round 7, I don't know, man. I just have so much hype on these other guys. Brock Purdy is one last guy in this tier that he gets so disrespected. The guy he's been a top 5 quarterback before. He was QB5 last season in points per game, even though he dealt with a ton of injuries, and so did the rest of his entire offense. And he was the QB2 in fantasy points per game last year. When he finally came back healthy, he went nuts. This is a guy you can get outside the top 10, and if you get a fully healthy season out of at least him, you're probably at worst getting a top 10 finish. So let's see. Before my next tier, got to shout out my promotions here. You have Underdog and Onyx. If you join with the code FORTUNE, you do get a free $50 and a free half a yard square. This is not letting me adjust my camera. Is it? Nope, it's not. There we go. So that's a pretty solid deal. And Chalkboard, same code. They kind of changed their promotions right now. If you go and put in $10, you'll get an extra $10. If you go and put in $100, you'll get an extra $100. They just double your deposit. Same thing as the half yard square as we prep for week 1. And they'll have some pretty fire deals probably in the future here too. I also have a fantasy football website linked in my bio. If you have any interest in draft guide help, everything is free. Let's go to the next tier, and that is going to be Kyler Murray, Jackson Dart, Bo Nix, Matt Stafford, Patrick Mahomes, and Jared Goff. So I think my number 1 strategy is targeting these guys in the B tier, because they're all valued, QB 7 to 12, and I believe that they all have the potential to be top 5, and almost just as much as anyone on the tier above them. Tier number 4, the C tier, I do really like these guys too, and honestly, I think they all have enough upside as well to where, if all of a sudden these guys in tier B are just falling quickly and you're not able to snag these guys, it's not the end of the world. Kyler Murray, let's start with him. He goes as the QB 17. You don't even need to factor him into your draft. But in 12-team leagues, this guy's been top 10 in points per game every single starting season of his career, except for last season with his injuries and, worst career year. Now we get to Minnesota offense that outside of McCarthy last year has always been top 6 in passing yards and touchdowns under Kevin O'Connell. He's got the best set of wide receivers he's ever had. The rushing upside will still absolutely be there. I think he'll kill his ADP. Jackson Dart, another guy that was top 10 in points per game when healthy on the field last season, simply because the rushing upside, if you get a healthy year out of him, Scadaboot, and Neighbors, he could easily be a top 5 quarterback. I'm not huge. I'll group Bo Nix and Jared Goff together here because Bo Nix was QB7 last year and QB7 the year before. So it feels weird to have him this low, and that's really what his ADP is. But to me, as a Bo Nix owner last year, yes, you're going to get a top 10 finish, possibly, probably. That's what he's been doing. But it's a really tough thing week to week where, like, it's really just matchup dependent. And I felt like he hurt my lineup more than he helped me. So maybe that's just a little bias there. And I agree the same thing with Jared Goff. Goff's been a top 10 quarterback for 3 years in a row. He's been second in passing for a couple years in a row. No rushing upside and completely matchup dependent, though. So I view those guys as streamers. Stafford is tough because he was the QB3 last year. He's got, one of the best set of just the best offense in general, play callers. I do think the improvement of their defense kind of will, allow them to pass a little less. They might just be killing teams, and he'll be the Drake Maye of last year where he doesn't need to do much in the fourth quarter. They're running the ball. And obviously you naturally have to expect some regressions in the passing yards and passing touchdowns department, but once again, this is a guy that can finish top 5. Mahomes is tough as well. He's coming off an injury. This is a completely new offense. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Mahomes can't finish top 5, and that sounds dumb. I'm saying all these guys can finish top 5, but I genuinely feel that's how the QB landscape looks like this season. So I would say for these first 4 tiers, I am targeting those B tier guys. Priority number 1. If not, I'll be okay with getting a guy or two from tier C. And that's weird to say because Josh Allen, Drake Maye specifically, I really like those guys. I just never find myself grabbing that quarterback at that ADP so early. Just never been my strategy. I guess that's what I'll say about that. Tier D, Baker Mayfield, Tyler Shuck, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold, Malik Willis. I'll go brief on these guys. I think Baker, we've seen him finish top 5 before. I think he was right outside the top 12 last season. I just feel like everyone I have ahead of him brings a lot more to the table. They have a lot more upside, specifically this season. Tyler Shuck showed a lot, man, and honestly, he has a ton of rushing upside. I don't think I would have ever put him in the tier above, but I do believe we're sitting there week 5 in the season. He may find his way into that tier. Like, I do think he has upside. Jordan Love, we've seen finish as QB5 before. I don't know. I just think he's more of a streaming quarterback. Same with Sam Darnold. Like, he was a borderline QB1 last season. But these guys are not guys you're excited about. They are startable and good matchups for sure. Malik Willis, I don't see the upside here. I understand why people can be excited about him, specifically with his ADP, but to me, this is like Justin Fields from last season, where I bid on the Justin Fields hype and it didn't work out well. I don't necessarily think he'd be benched as early as Fields was, if he struggles, but I'm like so confident that he's going to struggle, and it's simply because of the situation, man. I mean, you have Devon Achane at running back, but then you have a terrible offensive line, questionable OC, and absolutely no weapons to throw to. So I just don't understand how. I mean, you're going to need a couple of touchdowns a week from him to get to hit this sleeper hype that he's getting right now, and I just don't think that's going to happen in this Dolphins offense. Like, what happens if Devon Achane goes down? This offense is putting up 6 points a game, and that's going to be 2 field goals. I just can't buy into it. Next tier, that's not working. Shoot. Okay, next tier is Daniel Jones, Cam Ward, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Jones, I could see on the tier above. I mean, I'm a Colts fan. You can see the Colts stuff around me. He's more than capable. I mean, he was a top 10 quarterback before injury last season. So, like, another guy where it's like week 5 into the season, maybe he's up in tier D or tier C, honestly. I could see that, but you don't like this tier. I'll say these bottom 2 tiers, like these guys aren't getting drafted, and so you can keep your eye on them for the waiver wire. I would say him and Cam Ward in this tier specifically have upside. Jones, obviously, because he did it last year, and Ward because got some new additions around him going into year 2 with a really nice offensive play caller. So I could see some upside there. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are simply here because tier F felt disrespectful, but I don't see them doing anything. They'll just hurt your lineup more often than not. And finally, the last tier, Brissett, Rodgers, Geno, and Mendoza. Mendoza, I don't know when he'll come in. Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers, you're never ever going to start them and probably never going to roster them. Brissett, this may feel a little weird. Right, like he was top 12 in like every game he played last season with a ridiculous like garbage time script. I just don't see that continuing to happen. I don't see him having the success he had last season. And honestly, I think there's a shot that he gets benched. Maybe it's not even his fault, but this schedule is so hard, especially for a fantasy quarterback. I mean, they could be sitting there 1-7, like, let's go roll out Carson Beck. So I don't think you should invest anything into Jacoby Brissett. So all in all, target tier B. If not, tier C is cool with me. I don't really have the interest in tier A this season. And I'm totally fine if you want to roll with the tier S guys. I don't think you're ever going to regret that. I just like loading up on other positions and then targeting these late quarterback values. But make sure you leave a like or subscribe. It helps me out a ton. I'll be trying to pump out a lot of these the rest of the season. See you on the next one.